Welcome back to Team Blush. Today we're going to be installing these KYB struts on the 240SX. I'm going to show you guys how to do that for those of us that may not have the funds to pick up a set of coilovers just yet. We're going to be getting rid of the bounce in the 240, as you can see in the video right now. I can feel that going down the road all the time. No matter what tiny bump I hit in the road, the entire car is just bouncing up and down like some sort of lowrider. These struts are going to fix that. Thanks again, Dave, for picking these up for me. Let's get them on. Alright, so first you're going to want to start by taking the wheel cover off of your wheels. The second thing you're going to want to do is, with the car on the ground, loosen the lug nuts off of the wheel. You may need a pry bar to get these off because they're stuck on there pretty good. Alright, now that you have taken off the wheel cover and loosened the lug nuts, you're going to want to get a jack, go under the rear of the car, and put it underneath the rear differential, which is this right here. And once you have the jack under the rear differential, just want to kind of hand pump this a few times. It's a lot easier in my opinion than actually using the lever. Just snug it right up under the differential, just like that. Then you can take your bar, stick it in the jack, and slowly begin to lift the vehicle using the differential. Right, now that we've jacked up the car, we can take the lugs off completely and remove the wheel. Alright, so now that we got the wheel off of the car, we can actually see the strut and spring assembly itself. And what we need to do now is get to the top side of these struts. To do that, I'm going to pop the trunk. And the top of our struts is going to be hiding behind this plastic panel here. So start by peeling back your carpet. And you'll see, if the sun will stop glaring on my camera, you'll see this clip here and this clip here, fastener right here underneath where the carpet would be. I don't believe that this is OEM. I think this was done by a previous owner, so this might not be a Phillips head screw for you. There should be a clip right here. I'm missing mine. And a clip down here. Take a flathead screwdriver, or if you have a trim removal tool, use a clip remover to take these off to get to where the top of your strut lies. Alright, now that we have removed that plastic trim to get to the top of the strut tower, we can see that this rubber boot is hiding the bolts. I think the best way to get to this would be to go in the car and reach around from the other side. Alright, we are in the back seat of the car, and as you can see, it is much easier to get to this little rubber boot. I think all you gotta do is squeeze and pull it up. There we go. And this will give you access to your two bolts that are holding in the strut. Now you see this bolt in the middle? Do not untighten this. This is what is holding the compression in your springs. If you untighten that, it will let that compression loose from the springs, and it is very dangerous. First, we're going to loosen these two bolts. Right, so the final bolt that we need to remove to get these struts out of their perch, if you follow the length of the strut all the way down until you see this little nub right here, on the back side of it, you can see this nut right here. Loosen this. All right, well, after fighting with that bolt for quite a while, I ended up it looked silly, but I ended up using this steel pipe that I had laying around as a pry bar, and it is now nice and loose, so I can get that off the rest of the way. Well, it definitely took a little bit of hammering on this little bushing area down here, but we did get it taken out of the car. So now we're going to bring it into the garage. We're going to swap over the components from the old strut onto the new. Alright guys, well, we got the struts out of the car, and this is the old strut, obviously, and this is our brand new KYB XLG struts. Now what we got to do is take off all the extra accessories on this old strut and swap them onto the new strut. Alright, to begin swapping over the parts from the old strut to the new strut, we are going to have to compress this spring so that we can undo this middle nut that I told you not to undo earlier. We need to compress this spring before taking that off, because if we don't, it will rapidly decompress, and if it is strong enough, it could hurt you very badly. So if you don't have a spring compression tool, you can go over to your local O'Reilly's, AutoZone, your local auto parts store, and they will allow you to rent one of these spring compressor tools, and I will show you how those work. Okay, so to begin compressing these springs on the strut, you're going to want to take your spring compressor tool. You're going to want to push back these safety locking pins, and then take this curved section right here, place it on the, I'd like to recommend the second spring from one side, take the other side and put it on the other second spring so that you have it sandwiched on your springs. Then you're going to want to lock your locking pins on either side. Once you have the locking pins locked down, you're going to want to start spinning this shaft until you begin to feel the jaws of the device clamp down on the spring. Alright, now that you've gotten the spring compressor tool as tight as you possibly can with your fingers, you're going to want to take a ratchet and just begin tightening it. Alright, now once you have that tightened down quite a bit, you're going to take your other spring compressor tool. You're going to go to the other side. You're going to install it just as I showed the first one. And once you've gotten that side tightened down as best as you can with your fingers, again, ratchet, tighten it down just a little bit more. Now go back to the other side, start tightening down again. And one last time, switch back to the second one that you had put on and tighten it down again just a little bit more. Alright, now that you've tightened down the spring compressor tool on one side, the second side, and then done it once more, and you can see the gap between the spring in the middle is much shorter than the spring on the ends, you know that this strut assembly is safe and you can go ahead and undo this top bolt. Alright, so before you go loosening this top bolt, you're going to want to take a pair of vice grips and grip them tightly on the shaft of the old strut. Alright, and the vice grips are going to keep that shaft from spinning while you are undoing this bolt. Because nothing can go as planned, the shaft that I told you to use the vice grips on just kept spinning. Ended up, I just brought it down to a shop and he started to use some air tools on it and he couldn't get it either. So we ended up just completely cutting that bolt and the shaft right here. I tried to keep it together as best as possible. This is exactly how it came out. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to disassemble the old strut. There was a washer, a rubber bushing, the top hat itself, this rubber top cap for the spring, and then the entire strut will actually come right out of the spring itself. And what you're left with is your compressed spring. Be very careful with this. This actually has a lot of potential energy stored in it, and again, very dangerous. Be careful. And as you can see, we now have our old strut. And for the rest of the strut, we just need to take off everything as it is on the shaft and lay it in a row. Alright, typically you would want to take off this boot as well, but this one is in such bad condition that I'm not going to reuse that. Alright, now we're going to take our new strut and we're going to put each piece onto the shaft just as it came off of our old strut. And for the top hat, you're actually going to want to put your spring back on. And when you're putting the spring back on the strut, you're going to want to make sure that the end of the spring actually fits in this indentation right here. And then you can take your top hat, take the rubber bushing, put it on top. Put the cap on. Your washer. Luckily, since we cut through our top hat bolt, they gave me a new one in the kit. So you take that out of the bag and put it on your new top hat thread. Now you're going to want to tighten that down. Alright, now that we have successfully, after a lot of hassle, rebuilt our strut, we are going to feed it through this part of the suspension. This is very hard to do with one hand. Now what we're going to want to do is lift the strut and put these two studs through these in the strut tower. So it is definitely a bit of a pain, but you can reach underneath the wheel well, pick up the strut, and put both those studs through those holes, reach around the other side, and thread these bolts on. And once you've put those two studs through the top of the strut tower and threaded them just enough to allow the strut to hang like this, you can either put your foot on top of the assembly here and push this completely down so that you can push this spindle through this hole, or what I've been doing is use a piece of wood, sandwich it between the wheel well and the hub assembly, and press down just enough to get this in line with our new strut. Alright, once you have gotten this lower hole over this spindle, you're going to take your washer, put it on so that the flared edge points out. Then you're going to take your bolt, thread it over it, just as you took it off. Alright, so now we are back in the rear of the car so that we can get to the rear strut tower. We just want to tighten these bolts down just enough. You don't have to torque them down like crazy. You don't want them to strip out. That should be good. All right, let's put the plastic back on, and then we should be ready to get the wheels back on, drop the car, and go for a test drive. Oh, and I almost forgot. Don't forget to put on your little rubber boot over your strut tower bolts if you still have that from factory. All right, let's get this plastic piece back up against the fender, and then after that we'll go and get the wheels back on. Alright, let's get these wheels back on, get the car on the ground. Alright, so now we're going to torque down these lug bolts. I have the e-brake pulled in the car so that the tire doesn't rotate. And this is going to be torqued down to 960 inch-pounds. I accidentally bought the wrong torque wrench, so we're going to do it in inch-pounds. I'm not sure what it is in foot-pounds, but I know it's correct because I looked it up prior. Hey guys, real quick, phone's about to die, so just want to say thanks for watching the video. I just took the car out for a test drive and the suspension is amazing. If you have 30-year-old struts, I highly recommend that you swap them out for those KYBs that I had gotten given to me by a friend. Don't forget to subscribe, like, give a comment, show me your builds on Instagram. It'll be here on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Thanks a lot. Take it easy.